Hey Kitty, what are you reading? Oh, how to build a rocket. Well, that sounds really interesting. Hope it isn't hard for you to understand.
It isn't rocket science.
Oh yeah. Hey friends, I'm sure we all have heard someone saying that it's not rocket science when someone finds something difficult to understand. So, in today's episode, let us explore and try to understand this challenging world of rocket science and find out whether it is really very tough to fly a rocket. Zoom in! Before we launch ourselves high into space, we need to get grounded and try to understand that like all objects, rockets are governed by Newton's law of motion as well. Let us see how. Well, the first law describes how an object acts when no force is acting upon it. So, when the rocket is standing on a launching pad, before it is launched, it will stand still until an external force is applied to it. Not only that, but once it is set into motion, it won't stop or change its direction unless and until an external force is applied. Now comes Newton's second law of motion that tells us that the heavier an object is, the more force is required to set it into motion. Just like that, if a rocket is small and weighs less, it requires less amount of fuel. Whereas, if the rocket is on the heavier side, it requires more fuel. Next comes the most crucial part, the third law of motion, whose principles apply more prominently on the working of rockets. The third law says that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. In a rocket, burning fuel creates a push on the front of the rocket, launching it forward. This creates an equal and opposite force on the exhaust gas backward. You see, to launch the rocket upward at high speed, the fuel plays the most important role, which is also known as propellant in rocket science, and can be either solid or liquid in nature, stored inside the fuel chamber of the rocket. This stored fuel is burnt mixing with oxygen gas. The hot gas shoots out from another end, and the thrust pushes the rocket upwards, creating a tremendous amount of momentum. This is called jet propulsion. But is the thrust produced enough to launch the rocket? Well, sometimes the thrust produced is not enough and fails to lift the rocket, and to overcome this failure, certain stages are followed. At the first stage, the solid propellant boosters are attached to the rocket. Now, this first stage of the rocket plays an important part and carries a considerable responsibility to lift the rocket along with its content. It can move the rocket up to 28,000 kilometers per hour far into space. After this, the solid propellant boosters get detached as they consume all their fuel. That's when the main engine starts its work and helps the rocket to move further into the orbit, and also gets detached after consuming its fuel. This detachment is followed on further stages, which slowly helps the rocket achieve greater acceleration. These separated parts either fall off into the ocean or is burnt up into the atmosphere. And after passing all the stages, the object which the rocket carries is finally sent and set into the desired orbit. And that's how the rocket is sent so high up into the space in search of a brighter future. Trivia! Trivia time! Did you know the first rocket was invented around 1100 AD in China? These rockets used solid propellants and were mainly used as weapons and fireworks. Also, you won't believe, but to be able to burst through the gravity of the Earth, a rocket needs to travel at a speed of 7 miles per second. Now, that's some speed. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, it's me, Dr. Binocs, zooming out. Never mind. Oh no, the fuel tank is nearly empty.
Oh no!
Don't worry, little kitty. The GPS is showing that we are pretty close to the International Space Station, and I'm sure we will get a refill there to go back home.
Space station?
Yes, kitty, the space station. Hey friends, in today's episode, let us talk about this man-made phenomenon that filled our dreams of residing in space and explore the wonders of the space station. Zoom in! So, what is a space station? The International Space Station is a large spacecraft that orbits around the Earth. It is a home where astronauts stay during their space mission. But the vital question is, why do we build it in the first place? Well, as they say, curiosity is the essence of human existence, and it has taken us to the deepest part of the ocean, to the tallest mountains, to every unexplored part of the world, and even beyond it, into space. Yes, scientists around the globe are always on their toes to explore the wonders of the universe. But soon they realize that it isn't possible within the confinement of the four walls of a lab. And if they needed to know more about space, then they have to stay in space. So, to facilitate research, gather data, explore and do much more, 5 space agencies that include NASA from the United States, Roscosmos from Russia, JAXA from Japan, ESA of Europe, and CSA of Canada took the initiative to build an international space station on the Earth's orbit. And after some essential formalities, Russia sent the first module called Zarya, meaning sunrise in the Russian language. Zarya provided the solar panels to generate electricity and propulsion to accelerate the spacecraft so that it does not crash back to the Earth. After this, the USA launched the module named Unity or Node 1 to connect the other modules. After that, more pieces were added by other space agencies, and step by step, 2 years later, the station was ready for people. The first crew went there on 2nd November 2000, and people have lived on the space station ever since. Over time, some more pieces were added to it, and finally NASA and its partners around the globe completed the space station in 2011. I know you guys must be curious to know how it's like being inside this giant house in space. So, let me give you a quick tour of this man-made marvel. The space station is made up of many parts called modules. The first module has parts required to make the space station work, and it is also where the astronauts live during their visit. Modules called nodes connect parts of the station to each other. It also has labs that let astronauts do research. Not only that, but the space station also has a few bedrooms for taking naps. But because the sun rises every 45 minutes, the crew working there usually wears sleeping masks. And as there is very little gravity, astronauts need to tie themselves to something so that they don't float through the air while they sleep. There is also a kitchen to feed a hungry stomach, a gymnasium to prevent the muscles from growing lazy, and a couple of bathrooms to clean themselves. However, they must bring or produce all of the air, water and food that they need to survive. And on the sides of the space station are solar arrays that collect energy from the sun and turn sunlight into electricity. Besides, you will find airlocks on them that are like doors the astronauts use to go outside on spacewalks. Also, a return vehicle is available if an emergency requires the ISS crew to leave immediately. Trivia time! Did you know around 240 individuals from 19 countries have visited the International Space Station to date? Also, the ISS is the single most expensive object ever built. The cost of the ISS has been estimated at over $120 billion. Hope you learned something new in today's episode. Until next time, it's me, Dr. Binocs, zooming out. There it is, Kitty, the space station, and we still have some fuel left. Oh, never mind. Wait, little kitty. Don't go out in space without a spacesuit.
Kitty needs to pee.
Well, we have no choice but to hold until we fix the shuttle's toilet. But going out in space like this could be dangerous.
Why?
That's an excellent question. Hey friends, so in today's episode, let us explain to Kitty its consequences by answering a spacey question. What if you went to space without a spacesuit? Zoom in. Suppose you become an astronaut and are bored of chilling inside the space station, so decide to go for a spacewalk. Then one thing you should not forget to take along is your spacesuit for obvious reasons. Inside spacesuits, astronauts have the oxygen they need to breathe and the water they need to drink. But imagine what will happen if a naive astronaut with a short-term memory loss forgets to wear his protective suit and floats outside the spacecraft. Well, in that case, the first obvious thing the naive astronaut will feel is a complete lack of oxygen. Yes, as we know, space is almost an absolute vacuum, meaning it is empty. And when our body is exposed to a vacuumed area, it has only 15 seconds worth of oxygen in it. That means if the poor astronaut doesn't get back to the oxygen-rich site of his spacecraft within 15 seconds, then his body will lose all the oxygen and the poor astronaut's brain will go unconscious. And if you think he could hold his breath to get some breathing space, then that's the worst thing we can do in space without a spacesuit. That's because due to the lack of pressure in space, the oxygen located inside the lungs would expand, causing the lungs to rupture, which could be fatal. So instead, it is advisable to breathe out and keep your lungs empty in such a situation. This way, despite being unconscious after 15 seconds, your body can survive up to 2 minutes in space with a little risk of permanent damage. But let's say a naive astronaut managed to get some oxygen supply by a stroke of luck and managed to stay conscious. Well, despite that, it will be hard to stay in space without a spacesuit due to the lack of atmospheric pressure around him. Yes, without the protection of the Earth's atmosphere, the UV rays, X-rays and gamma rays would not only burn his already bubbling skin, but also damage the DNA, giving the astronaut a terrible sunburn. But that's not it. Due to this lack of atmospheric pressure, the next thing to happen to our astronaut is the vaporization of water in his body, causing it to swell to about twice the normal size. But fortunately, as human skin is very elastic and enduring, unlike popular belief, he won't burst like a balloon, but continue to float in the vastness of space until help arrives. So in short, if some astronaut accidentally walks out in space without a spacesuit, then we have only 15 seconds to bring them back to safety before it's too late. Trivia time! Did you know the spacesuits used on the International Space Station today remain there all the time? Yes, the astronauts do not have their own spacesuits. The same spacesuit can be worn by several astronauts according to the assignments from the Mission Control Center. Hope you learned something new today. Until next time, it's me, Dr. Binocs, zooming out. Ew, never mind.
Oh, little kitty, you look a bit emotional seeing these pictures from the past.
Kitty wants to go to past.
Well, practically, we are yet to build a time machine. But theoretically, we can actually see the past with the help of a big telescope like the James Webb.
Really? How?
Well, let me explain that in today's episode by answering a timeless question. How does the James Webb telescope see back in time? Zoom in! On December 25th, 2021, NASA, along with Canadian and European space agencies, launched one of their most ambitious $10 billion projects called the James Webb Telescope into space. It is the largest, most powerful telescope ever built, with a height of a 3-story building and the length of a tennis court. It was designed to capture images of some of the first galaxies ever formed and look inside dust clouds to see where new planets and stars are forming, and even examine the possibility of life on other planets. On top of all this, what's more fascinating is that it will allow us to look at what our universe was like about 200 million years after the Big Bang. So basically, it will technically be able to look back in time. But how? Well, this time-traveling factor of the James Webb Telescope is all to do with how long it takes light to travel through the universe. Confused? Let me explain. You see, all of the light we see, right from the distant stars in space to the glow from the electric bulb hanging a few feet away, takes time to reach your eyes. And as light moves with a super speed of 186,000 miles per second, we don't catch it traveling from a shorter distance, like from the bulb to our eyes. However, when you're looking at objects that are millions or billions of miles away, like in space, you're actually seeing light that has traveled a long, long way to reach you. For example, our sun is located nearly 93 million miles away from Earth. Because of this distance, it takes light around 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel from the sun to Earth. So, when we look at the sun through protective glasses, we are actually seeing it as it appeared more than 8 minutes ago. Not as it appears at the moment you are seeing it. In other words, you're looking 8 minutes into the past, that too without any super expensive telescope. Similarly, for an object located far deep into the universe, the visible light waves coming from it are yet to reach us, due to which we can't see those objects. On top of that, in most cases, before this light could even reach us, these waves of visible light will stretch out and turn into infrared, which is invisible to human eyes. So it means we won't be able to see these objects ever. And that's why astronomers need powerful telescopes like James Webb. Because not only does this telescope zoom in on distant galaxies to observe visible light coming from many millions of light years away, but it can also pick up infrared waves that can pass through anything coming in its way. So, using its infrared sensing instruments, James Webb can peek through dusty regions of space to study light that was emitted more than 13 billion years ago by the most ancient stars and galaxies in the universe, and look back into time.
Trivia time!
Did you know the telescope is named after James E. Webb, the famous administrator of NASA from 1961 to 1968? Yes, it was under his tenure the world saw the first moon landing. Hope you had fun today. Until next time, it's me, Dr. Binocs, zooming out. Never mind.
Oh, little kitty, just like everything that glitters is not gold, similarly, everything that shines in the sky ain't stars. In fact, these small dots you see are chunky space debris.
Space debris?
Yes, little kitty. Hey, friends, it's unfortunate to say that after polluting natural resources like air, water, and the soil on Earth, humans have gone beyond the horizons and are even polluting the space, and space debris is one of the results of our negligence. So, in today's episode, let us learn about this vital issue that we have overlooked for years and years and answer a universally challenged question. What is space debris? Zoom in! So, what is space debris? Space debris is the collection of useless man-made and natural objects that are zipping into the Earth's orbit like broken satellites, empty rockets, pieces of metal, meteoroids, comets, and many more. In other words, they are just trash lying in space, which is getting bigger and bigger. But the vital question is, what is this trash all about, and how did it accumulate into the vastness of space? Well, unfortunately, we don't have any control over the natural debris accumulating above the sky. But we do have a certain say over the man-made junk that has been amassing since the first human-made satellite Sputnik 1 escaped Earth's gravitational pull on October 4th, 1957. This junk includes the stages from rockets that jettison satellites into orbit and the satellites themselves once they die. Not only that, when an astronaut carries out a mission into space, they sometimes end up leaving their tools and equipment behind into space, like nuts and bolts, garbage bags, a lens cap, screwdriver, and even a spatula. Further, when this present debris collides with each other or the other floating space objects such as a satellite or spacecraft, they shatter into even smaller pieces, increasing the level of waste into space. Now, you might be wondering if this debris is really hazardous. Well, space debris is generally harmless unless and until it collides into something else that is orbiting in space. Yes, tiny space debris can travel up to the speed of 17,500 miles per hour, which is equivalent to the energy of an SUV going up to the speed of 70 miles an hour, and has the power to damage a satellite, spacecraft, or any other objects that bump into them. But although we are aware of its consequences, then why are we not taking measures to solve this trashy problem? Well, fortunately, we have started to do our bit. A team of experienced space debris researchers based at École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, EPFL Research Institute, has built a test satellite named Clean Space One for removing the debris already up there. Not only that, but scientists around the globe are also planning to develop the devices that could help to burn down the unused parts into space itself, or to bring back the leftovers so that they could be used again. Trivia time! Did you know more than 500,000 pieces of space debris are tracked so far that are orbiting the Earth? Also, most of the debris burns up upon re-entry. But if it doesn't, don't worry, your chances of getting hit by a falling piece of space waste are 10 million times smaller than the usual odds of being struck by lightning. Well, that's not comforting either way. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, it's me, Dr. Binocs, zooming out. Aw, never mind.
Go, 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 go! Yay! Yay! Finally, ISRO's hard work paid off. A great achievement for humankind. That's a great question. So in today's episode, let us take you and our curious audience to the dark side of the moon by narrating the story of Mission Chandrayaan 3. Zoom in! Chandrayaan, an incredible series of lunar explorations by ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, has brought us closer to the mysteries of the moon. The first mission, Chandrayaan-1, launched in 2008, was a breakthrough as it discovered water on the moon, changing the way we perceived our celestial neighbor. However, the real surprise was yet to come. Chandrayaan-2, launched in 2019, was designed with an orbiter, a lander named Vikram, and a small rover called Pragyan. Unfortunately,
During its landing attempt, Vikram lost contact and couldn't reach the moon's surface as planned due to a small error. K. Sivan, the then chairman of ISRO, described this nerve-wracking process as the 15 minutes of terror for his team. The setback was not only disheartening for the ISRO scientists, but also a poignant moment for the entire nation. Yes, ISRO didn't succumb to despair. Instead, they embraced the challenge, learned from their mistakes, and immediately embarked on their next venture, Chandrayaan 3. Then on the remarkable day of July 14, 2023, the powerful LV-M3 heavy lift rocket lifted off flawlessly from Sriharikota Space Station in Andhra Pradesh, carrying the Chandrayaan 3 spacecraft with the Vikram lander and the Pragyan rover on board. This spacecraft had a special mission, a 41-day journey to the moon. As projected on August 23, 2023 at 6:04 p.m. India Standard Time, the Vikram lander gently touched down to the moon's surface perfectly. The landing was so gentle, so smooth, that it felt like the moon itself was giving a warm hug to the spacecraft. This kind of landing is called a soft landing, and Chandrayaan 3 executed it flawlessly. Following this historic moment, India joined an elite club of space explorers, the United States, the Soviet Union, and China, who had successfully sent robotic crafts to land on the moon. But wait, there's more to the story. This landing was different from the others. Why? That's because Chandrayaan 3 landed on the moon's south polar region, a spot that no one had ever touched before. After the landing, Chandrayaan 3 waited for the lunar dust to settle, and then the Pragyan rover rolled out of the lander and started taking a walk on the moon. Then Pragyan studied the elements available on the south pole of the moon and confirmed the presence of sulfur, oxygen, aluminium, calcium, and more. The detection of sulfur holds particular significance as it's a relatively uncommon element on the moon. Its occurrence in the lunar south polar region suggests the potential existence of water ice, a critical factor for future lunar missions and potential human settlements. These findings underscore the importance of lunar exploration in advancing our knowledge of the universe. As the quest for knowledge continues, the global community eagerly anticipates further revelations from the Indian Space Research Organization. Trivia time! Did you know the first discovery of water on the moon was made by the ISRO's Chandrayaan 1 mission? Chandrayaan 3 discovered a temperature drop from around 50 degrees Celsius on the moon's surface to minus 10 degrees Celsius, just 80 millimeters below it. Hope you had fun today. Until next time, it's me, Dr. Binocs, zooming out. What are you building, Kitty?